Generative AI is the new race, declared the Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella as the tech giant announced a $10 billion investment in OpenAI, the maker of ChatGPT, which since its launch in November last has set a record for garnering the fastest growing user base. With over 100 million users now using generative AI platforms like ChatGPT every day, it's clear the potential of this technology is immense. Fun experiments have led to excited execution, with over 100 products being built using the ChatGPT interface in just the first week of March. And there is more to come, as Google, Meta, and pretty much every other enterprise rushes to keep pace with the revolution, which is set to change how businesses and common users like you and I can generate creative solutions to problems, from marketers crafting personalized campaigns to target every single customer, and bankers using generative AI to bank the unbanked, to influencers easily dubbing their content in several languages, and manufacturers overcoming design dead ends and cutting costs with better predictions. The new industrial churn looks like it is here. When we look at India, it is still an enthusiast market with impediments, many in the way to become an AI mature economy. As NASSCOM puts it, while the potential of generative AI, as we can all sense, is huge, it raises an urgent question for CEOs and CTOs in India. How can India Inc. approach generative AI and make it an effective part of corporate strategy with the necessary guardrails in place? As we also look at the possibility of job roles changing and skill sets being demanded as we move forward. Good evening. Thanks very much for joining us on this special edition of Eye on India. I'm Shireen Bhan. Joining me on Eye on India, Mohit Kapoor, Group CTO at Mahindra, Milind Nagnur, CTO of Kotak Mahindra Bank. Also with us, Rohini Srivastava, CTO at Microsoft India, and Mahesh Makhija, Tech Consulting Leader at EY India. Rohini, gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the program. Mahesh, let me start by talking to you about exactly this. I mean, how real is this move towards generative AI? I know everyone is pegging it as the next big disruption, as the next engine for growth as far as technology is concerned, but we have heard that previously about other disruptions as well. So when we talk about the adoption, and specifically in the context of India, what do you hear from CEOs and companies that you speak to?
So I think, Shireen, there's a huge amount of excitement, and the boardroom is really exploded with interest in AI, not just generative AI, but AI in general. So every CEO is demanding of his or her team to come back, in terms of what are the use cases which can be implemented with this new technology. So if you're a SaaS company, you're trying to look at something like an in-app assistant, and that's going to become the way we deal, with apps. There's going to be in-app assistants which learn, and then those will generate, the kinds of signals which we will then start to, use in our use of those, technologies. If you're an enterprise company, and I'm sure, Milind and Mohit will talk about this, whole functions will get transformed. Customer service, case in point, for example, classic case for, generative AI. So there's a lot of POCs we are seeing in our client base, starting off to look at those kinds of functions. And then the tech world, right? That's one of the classic use cases, which is GitHub Copilot. We've seen a massive improvement in productivity when developers start to get these tools, right? Almost like a 30 to 40% improvement in productivity. There's statistics which say that if you look at the big tech companies like Google, etc., almost 6 to 8% of their code base is now actually generated code. So really good value potential. Obviously there are, the other part of it, which is things like hallucination, bias, copyright. All of that has to be, looked at. But I really think we're seeing the evolution of a new platform, and this platform is an API-driven platform. It used to be the big tech companies who had large access to data. They were the only ones who could use AI. But right now it's accessible to, the masses of companies through this API kind of basis, where it becomes like a platform on which you see startups and big tech beginning to innovate. So I'm pretty optimistic. Of course, like you said, the guardrails have to be put in place as well.
Yeah. Well, yes, the guardrails have to be put in place, as is the case with any technology and any innovation. But as you pointed out, there is plenty of excitement at this point. But Rohini, let me address that issue with you. As we just heard there from Mahesh, just about every CEO is talking about this. In my conversation with Satya Nadella, he truly believes that this is going to be the next growth engine as far as technology is concerned. Take me through how Microsoft is looking at this area of generative AI. What is it meant for the organization, and how do you see it evolving for the ecosystem?
That's a great question, Shireen. I think As you rightly said, this is a new paradigm in AI. And as Mahesh was saying, AI is not new. And even generative AI technology has been developing. What we've seen more recently is this explosion of interest in the space. But if you kind of look back a little bit, the work in this space has been going on since 2017. It's a type of technology that is able to generate new content, like you mentioned, such as text, images, music, speech, code. What that means is that you are now not limited by the existing data or human input in that kind of output that is created, kind of content that is created. Now, two of my favorite applications of generative AI, one that Mahesh talked about is the GitHub Copilot, which is really an AI pair programmer that helps you write code faster with lesser work, offers you inline suggestions as you code based on context of your comments, and it's powered internally by the OpenAI Codex foundational model. The second really interesting one is how generative AI can be a huge productivity booster across functions of sales, service, marketing, commerce. For example, you can create now personalized emails for customers based on their preferences and behavior, or it can create insights and recommendations for sales opportunities. If I step back, I think the type of opportunities we are seeing is number one, AI is going to become more and more mainstream. While it has been on a journey, but I think now it is becoming accessible and as a platform, as models, as these foundational models are being consumed. So I think that is number one. Number two, I think it will really have every organization consider AI as part of their overall digital transformation toolkit. And it will require all of us to think about our work in a way that is as a co-pilot. Every single function will have what Satya calls a co-pilot that is an augmentation of what human can do in every single function.
Well, yes, and I think that, that's another interesting question and another interesting debate to look at, whether this is going to augment and create more jobs, or is it going to displace people, because that is a fear at this point in time as well. But Mohit and Milind, coming to you with the point that Rohini made, that this is now going to have to be an integral part of every company, every enterprise's digital transformation strategy, digital transformation plan. Mohit, let me start by asking you, how are you incorporating this into workflow? We've heard both from Mahesh as well as Rohini in terms of efficiency, in terms of the turnaround times, and all of that, of course, will also mean an improvement in terms of return on capital. So how are you incorporating this into the enterprise at this point?
Thanks, Shireen. So Mahesh is right. For the Mahindra Group, this decade is of the decade of artificial intelligence, whether it's to use predictive AI on making our vehicles more secure, safer, range extension of electric vehicles, driving financial inclusion, making housing more green and sustainable, or making agriculture more digital. So that's kind of the roadmap which is already on. Of course, there is exciting generative AI which has got added on now. We are looking at four types of use cases already in play. The large language model, the one we hear about, the ChatGPT equivalent, on how to make sales, servicing more productive and more personalized for the customer. So that's one, the large language model. Second is the developer efficiency and productivity, whether the GitHub Copilot or the OpenAI. Third is around voice to text, text to voice, which is around call center, again, making customer servicing more effective, and looking at languages, vernacular, into rural. We have a large Bharat play because of being a tractor manufacturer and a finance company in rural. So very, very big promise in the vernacular side as well. That's the third level of experimentation and road mapping. And last would be on creativity, whether it's image generation or video generation. So if you want to put a red in your creative and you want to show it on the beach, show it in the mountain, show it in the forest, you can quickly, in 5 minutes, generate 3 creatives and then go after the one which appeals the best, some bit of that. Now, of course, this is still at the startup phase. I see the challenge in the overall architecture, which is what we are currently working with closely with Microsoft and OpenAI, on how can customer data, company data, and public data still remain containerized and safe, but the neural logic of a generative AI be applied to it, so that when the customer is trying to figure out where is my vehicle, he gets the answer. Or when the company is trying to figure out when do I get these spare parts to make the vehicle, I get the answer. Or you want to say how far can my vehicle go, or where can I eat on way? That's public
Right.
data. It'll show you all the restaurants on way, your trip itinerary. So you should be able to get all three of them without compromising data. I think that part
Right.
is yet. And the other thing, last the comment would be around the biases which may creep in, etc., which is a standard AI thing to cater to. So we're working on all these lines, but
Yeah.
very exciting, very promising equally.
Well, exciting and promising, but would it be fair to say that on each of these pillars that you just spoke to us about, you're still in experimentation or pilot mode at this point in time for each of them?
Yes, I would say pilot to adoption on the creative side, but on the large language model, we're training the bots, and the other two we haven't, and GitHub also we use. So I would say some are in the startup phase and some are in low-level adoption, but nothing at scale. It's just very new.